Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. You have been cocked.
You suck.
Hail Hydra.
Too soon. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Yes. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Nerding Out. We are very excited to be back bringing content to you guys.
I'm sure you're not. You're like, oh god, they're back.
But if you've noticed, our voices sound very crispy and very clean. We have new technology. We have the technology.
Yep, new vocal cords.
Stronger, better.
Yeah. We
Not exactly
We
fast.
got
does that.
We got vocal cord transplants.
Yep.
And so now we're good.
Yep.
And now we sound nice and clean and all that good stuff. So
You saying we sounded dirty before?
I did. But
So dirty. No.
but yeah. So welcome back. We've missed you. We hope you've missed us.
I didn't miss
you guys.
either of you.
It's because you guys listening to us are going crazy. We've seen a really big spike of downloads in the last couple of months while we're gone, and that's just been crazy to see. Thank you very much for the support, especially while we're gone, not putting out any content. That's that's really exciting to see. And we're not going to go too much into news today. We're not going to go too much into any of kind of like what's happened or like what's been going on. You guys all know what's been going on. You don't need us to tell you what's going on all the time.
Yep.
But
There's a little tiny speck of a movie that just came out.
yes,
Yep.
yes, indeed. It's been a movie that has been, 10, almost about 11 years in the making. 22 movies, all culminating in this one moment, this one penultimate 3-hour movie, Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
And that is going to be the bulk of our main topic today. We're not really going to talk about much else, and we're just going to go into it. First is going to be a very brief kind of first impressions thing.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, but afterwards, the bulk of this episode will be spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet, which, what's wrong with you? You got to go see it. But also if you have like migraines or something and loud noises make your head hurt, I also get that. That's fine. Just wait for the movie to come out.
And if you have epilepsy, still go see it. It's worth it.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
it's worth the seizures.
Honestly, it might be.
I don't
But
know.
I don't have epilepsy, so I
Anyway,
wouldn't know. So
okay. So first impressions, guys. What was your first impressions of the movie?
that I just
My first impression of the movie was there was a lot of
God, this is long.
resolution. yeah, that and I was both impressed and at the same time there was a lot of resolution. I felt like it wrapped everything up, like it put everything in to a point, to a period. It was the period to an end of a very long sentence to me. So
Last 10 years, it's been one run-on sentence.
it has literally been such a very long, like a very, very long, I mean, shoot, over the span of 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like, it's been a long time.
Well, 11 years now, going
Yeah.
into 2019. It's been
Yeah.
11 years.
I think walking
Starting
out of the
back in
movie,
2008 with Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
Walking out of the movie, I was like, that didn't feel like 3 hours. That felt way shorter. And then walking out a second time, I was like, that did not feel like 3 hours.
It's
That
like the
just
second time.
cruised by.
It's like the second time that felt like 3 hours. Well, no, it's funny. It was interesting. I was actually talking to my wife. By the way, I'm married now. That happened.
Yep.
We're just gonna gloss over that. Not too much pomp and circumstance. But I saw it with my family, with including her and a couple of other my friends, Doug and Nick, who've both been on the podcast. And we all watched it together while my wife was hitting me half the time because I was jumping out of my chair almost all like every couple minutes, and she hated that. And but as we were leaving, I had a friend of mine who had seen it already who watched it with us again, and he said that didn't feel like 3 hours. And my wife just kind of goes, "Really? It did to me." And I think it was interesting seeing it with someone with a different perspective that doesn't have the emotional like pull as like the rest of us do. So it was cool kind of getting her perspective and seeing like all those epic moments where, like, a perfect example in Infinity War where Thor comes down into Wakanda, and there's the triumphant music where he catches Stormbreaker and everyone's, but that is purely an applause break that serves no point to the plot or anything like that, and the screenwriters and the directors knew that. So I kind of watched this movie through those lenses too, and I saw that there was a lot of like fan servicey, like applause break moments, but I still enjoyed it. I still loved it, and it was still an emotional roller coaster for me. It didn't feel like 3 hours to me, but it kind of felt like it was 3 separate stories in a way. It was almost like 3 different movies. Each hour essentially it felt like 3 different movies. So, but it all like comes together very well, and like the pacing is really good. So I thought it was really good.
And I can't say much without spoiling it,
Yeah.
except that it was a very, which I was happy about, character-driven film.
Yes, it was.
And
Absolutely.
I thought it was phenomenal. I would definitely see it a 3rd and 4th time.
My
I don't know why I do that to myself, but
my wife was saying, it's just like I would have to wait a year before I can see this again, because it was a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and when it comes out on Netflix in a year, we'll probably watch it again. But that's fine. But yeah, so I think that okay. So what would you first impressions? What would you give it as like a grade?
I feel like it's almost impossible to give it a score because of what it is. It's not what other films are.
That's
but
true.
I think for what it was trying to accomplish, it nailed it. Like, I think it's like does perfectly what it set out to do. So I would say an A+, like based on that.
David, what about you?
I didn't. There's very few things about the movie I didn't like. Most of which
We'll get into those later.
Yeah, most of which is just little nitpicks of mine, but a lot of what I found great about the movie was, and this is what I kind of don't like about a lot of certain informed movies where they have to recap things. Like, they picked up right where it ended
After that.
and nothing was informed. Nothing was like, "Hi, I'm Hawkeye. This is what I do. I shoot arrows." Like, none of that.
There was no
done.
narration.
Yeah, there was no narration. There was no backstory given. It was just straight into it. I did enjoy the movie because there was a lot of
misdirection too.
There's plenty of misdirection. There's plenty of that. There's plenty of situations where I didn't feel like they had to give characters as much time as they had in previous, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like in previous movies there was a lot of longer kind of character interaction, and I know that they had to do a lot in this movie to try and sum everything up. And I kind of enjoyed that it was just kind of quicker paced. It was quicker, and it was easier to get certain points across without having to mull on a certain, well, I have to do this, and
There was a lot of things that this film did that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
And there was a lot of things in this movie that, like, everything that the characters did in this movie made sense to the characters. There wasn't a character decision that I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would he or she do that? And it all meshes together really well into this really great narrative that does kind of like what you were saying, like put a period to the end of this, to the last sentence in this story. It's just it's very poignant, and it's a very strong point that they make at the end, and it really makes you feel like the MCU is not going to be the same after this. It's going to be very different. And for the good, it's going to be different for all the good reasons. And there's going to be a lot of new characters that are going to be getting story arcs, and and there's going to be more. There's going to be another 10-year build up to some other big.
A lot of new characters too.
Yeah, a lot of new characters to build, and then now that the Disney got a lot of the movie rights to Fox, the X-Men will show up at some point, I'm sure. Which I have a theory onto how they're going to introduce them, but we'll get to that in the spoilers.
through Deadpool. No, I'm kidding.
I heard some comments about that not wanting to do that, but that's still an option, I think.
Yeah, I know that they say that, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
always misdirect
Right,
and all that stuff. So do you guys want to go into spoilers now?
Spoilers.
Absolutely.
Car spoilers.
Absolutely.
Okay. car spoilers. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
one of
that
the funny is
the
just,
Infinity War spoiler, and it's like a spoiler with like an end
The
game,
word Infinity War.
end game. Yeah. So spoiler alert.
Stay away if you haven't seen the movie.
Okay, yeah.
Well, let's
And
start as the movie progresses, so we're not just gonna basically give the end of the movie away.
Right.
So
Well, the very beginning of the movie, I didn't expect it to begin the way that it did.
Yeah.
When it opens up with Clint Barton and his family, my first thought was, oh, not like this. Like, I don't want this to be my introduction into this movie. That's sad. I didn't want to be introduced to this movie that way.
But it worked so well to
It
me.
did.
I was just like, I was honestly blown away by that moment.
Yeah.
I was like, this is really well done. His acting was spot on.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
he nailed
Jeremy Renner did a really good job as Hawkeye, and him becoming Ronin kind of makes sense because in his character's mind, you know, my family was good people and they're gone, and all these people are wasting their time being bad people. You should be lucky that you're alive, so you don't deserve to be alive.
Right.
That's his mindset now as he becomes Ronin.
as he lost like everything.
Yes,
basically.
yes, exactly. It's in his mind. It's not fair that all of these criminals are still alive. So it's like you're not using your life the way that you should be, and it's like it's a very twisted, but like a really twisted sense of morality. Kind of reflects Thanos a little bit in the last movie, where his like morally, like he thinks what he's doing is right because he thinks he's saving the universe, but it's through a really, really dark and not really, you know, heroic means. So it's interesting how it ends with Thanos winning, and then it kind of begins with like the beginning of Hawkeye turning into Ronin, kind of with the same kind of like holy warrior, like fair balance thing. So it's interesting.
And I think it's like, even again, like what you were saying earlier about what makes sense to the characters, like Hawkeye, those were the only people he was with, because he was like out in the wilderness basically, living with his family, so that's all he had. Like it wasn't just all the people he cared about, it was like everything he cared about.
Yes. That's a really good way to put it. So
moving into the movie, we then had kind of the trailer gave a lot of the scene away, but we had Iron Man floating in space, and you know, just doing the whole thing where he's talking to his helmet or doing his message recordings and stuff. And then of course you had
Nebula and him playing paper football.
Yeah,
I love
which
that.
was a
That
nice
was
scene.
awesome. And then
of course you had Carol Danvers show up and say hi howdy, float through space.
Yeah.
Howdy, I'm all powerful. I'm just gonna Superman you back
They,
home.
my wife actually made a really good point. They did like she understands why they did it, but they did a really interesting job of benching Captain Marvel throughout this movie. Yeah. She, like, spoiler alert, why am I saying that? We're already in this part. Captain Marvel actually does not make she doesn't have a lot of screen time in this movie,
And she doesn't have a lot of impact.
No, she really doesn't.
Which a lot of people thought she was going to be one of the turning points.
She actually, a lot of people thought she was actually going to be like the leader of the Avengers going forward. I don't think the way that they ended it, I don't think it's going to be that way.
Yeah,
I think it's going to end up being like
she almost turned into a female, like early onset Thor in the early Avengers.
I mean, she was kind of like
overbalanced and overpowered.
She was kind of like Thor was at the end of Infinity War.
She kind of shows up and destroys everything, and then goes against Thanos and gets blown away.
Yeah.
And
So we'll get to that, but So she shows up, and they're all like, okay, let's go get Thanos. Here's my theory on how I think they're going to introduce mutants. But like you said, they probably won't connect it to this movie, but I think they will. When Rocket Raccoon is there, and he's talking about how when Thanos snapped his fingers, there was a big wave of energy that like flowed through the universe, flowed through the planet, and all that stuff. When later we find out that all of the stones give off gamma radiation. So what I'm thinking is, throughout the universe, if this snap sends a wave of gamma radiation, a lot of mutants are born. All the people who survived like are exposed to all this radiation, and maybe everyone mutates differently, and that's how we get the X-Men.
I like that. I think that would be a perfect way to bring them in. I think that's really a genius idea.
Yeah. Instead of like the whole multiverse theory where like, oh, there's like a rip and like some people slip through.
It would explain why there's no mutants up until now too.
Yes, exactly. So I think that would be a really interesting way to do it. They might not do it that way. They might though, because they really kind of emphasized on the gamma radiation from the stones.
Right.
So maybe that does have something to do with it, and that plays into Hulk's kind of story arc later too. But
My biggest shocker early on was Thanos just dies right away.
Yep.
because Thor goes for the head.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they basically show up to Thanos's the garden is what the planet that he rests on at the end of
Which at
Infinity
first
War.
I thought was really convenient, but then I was like, you know what? Thanos he accomplished his purpose at this point. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't.
So he's making himself food. Thanos uses spices too.
Yeah. He salt baits his soup.
Yeah.
apparently.
And the Avengers are just rude and just bust into his hut and like chop his arm off
Yep.
with the
And
Infinity
then-
Gauntlet. Which Thanos looks visibly gimp at this
Yeah.
point. Like he's hobbling and he doesn't look well. And they chop off the gauntlet and they see that the stones are gone. And they find out that Thanos snapped the stones out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
Which my thought immediately, I just wanted to say, like, shouldn't that have like caused the entire universe just to collapse? Because isn't that like, aren't those
They like
kinda-
hold it in balance.
aren't
or
they
whatever.
holding it in balance? But I guess not. So I guess the stones are gone, and then Thor promptly cuts off Thanos' head.
within like the first 20 minutes of the film?
It doesn't. I don't even think within that. I think it's like when the first like 10-15 minutes of
Yeah.
the movie, Thanos is already dead, and this timeline, but which it happened so fast. Then a 5-year break.
When I was watching the movie, there was an audible gasp from the audience when it said 5 years.
Oh yeah,
That is the last thing I expected.
I
It was
didn't-
like, no, they're gonna like fix things, right, pretty quickly.
right
No.
now. No, they pretty much accepted defeat at that moment, went home, and just went on with their lives. And they tried. They really tried. Steve Rogers he's kind of emulating Sam Wilson from The Winter Soldier, and he's holding a support group where Anthony Russo, one of the directors, makes a cameo in that as Marvel's first openly gay character, which a lot of people now are in protest saying that LGBTQ community didn't get enough representation in Endgame. I'm like, it wasn't about that. Shut up. Anyway.
Yeah, it just like served its story purpose. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, whatever. But then Natasha, Black Widow, she's
one of the ones that hasn't given up.
she's really trying to keep the peace, and she's kind of become this leader where with a lot of people reporting back to her. Captain Marvel has a new haircut.
Okay.
And she actually is sporting a different color scheme on her suit than she was at the end of Infinity War, or at the beginning of Infinity War, and from Captain Marvel, where like the blue shoulders and then the red bottom, and that's another like costume style that she actually has from the comic books. That when I mentioned that to my friends, they were like, "Oh, we didn't know this, or we didn't know that," and I'm just like, "Yep." Yeah. Because I'm a nerd.
I think the biggest thing was Thor's change. Like,
we'll get to that, but
but
I think
let's
that,
try not to like summarize the whole movie.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, all I was gonna say is, and I think they were hinting at a romance between Captain Marvel and War Machine. I think they were a little bit, because she kind of like glances a little bit longer at Rhodey, and she's like, "Be careful," and
Yeah.
she kind of like. So I think they're
That's more subtle, but that's good.
I think they're hinting at like a future romance between those two. Yes. So
Black Widow's dead.
That's okay. Yes.
okay. So
I guess we could go there.
That threw me off more than the actual peak of the end of the film. Obviously,
yes.
It ended the way it started. I feel like that's a good way to finalize that sort of
Yeah.
era of Marvel, was with the person who started the movies
Yeah.
and started the series.
So basically, what ends up happening in this movie is they go on a time heist, is what Ant-Man
Yeah.
calls it, and
Because of Ant-Man, he returns.
He
5
returns
years
from the
later.
quantum realm, and he's figuring out what happened, and sees his daughter 5 years later, and that was a really tender moment. So basically, they devise a plan. At this point, by the way, Tony Stark has officially like retired from the superhero life.
And he has a daughter.
He has a 5-year-old daughter named Morgan with Pepper at a lake house.
Some of the cutest moments in the film.
Yes.
Just
Love you
really
3000.
heartwarming.
love you 3000, because he said I love you a ton, and she said I love you 3000 because 1,000 is 1,000 more than a ton. Yeah,
That's so great.
Anyway, then he goes back and tells Pepper it's like not like it's a competition, but she says she loved me 3000, and you're
like in the low like 500-600s.
Yeah, just saying. Tony figures out how to time travel. He says shit in front of his daughter. That's a fun little cute moment.
No, he literally says the word.
Like he just goes.
Yeah. And then she says it, and then he says it again. She's like,
Yeah. It's like your mom technically coined that phrase, so if anyone, it's her fault. So they go on this time. So there's shenanigans with trying to figure out how time travel works.
Yeah. While Iron Man's figuring out time travel, the rest of the group are
getting the band back together.
Are trying to get the band back together. Hulk, or I should say Professor Hulk at this point, he's figured out how to be a balance of strength and
best
smarts.
of both worlds.
Yeah. He's become bro. I want to call him Bro Hulk because it's kind of how he acted the most of the film.
It's just Hulk but chill.
Yeah.
And he wears glasses
and clothes.
It's like someone comes up to him and is like, Mr. Hulk, can we take a picture with you? Of course, little person.
Yeah.
And then like nobody knows Ant-Man, and that's a really funny moment.
I feel like that. Okay, out of all the comedy in that movie, that one I think went a little too long.
Really?
I think so. That went on like 15 seconds longer than it should have.
That's another note. Is
like awkwardness. It was so awkward.
Yeah, I know.
Loved it.
When it got to halfway through it, I'm like, okay, this is still going. Okay. Yeah.
And that's what I found was funny too, is how much like I didn't realize until like after the movie. I'm just like, they use a little bit more language in this one, like because he was just like, just give him the goddamn phone. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah,
just take your goddamn phone.
Take the goddamn phone. I'm like,
They're like, we're popular. We can.
Oh yeah. I think one of my favorite lines from Ant-Man was when they're trying to test the time travel thing. He comes back and they like once he's a baby, once he's it's like I think someone peed my pants. I don't know if it was old me or baby me. Or just me.
Or just me. No, just me,
Yeah, or no, I think it was just, or me. Yeah.
So they try and get the band back together.
Hulk was fun, though, because he's like, this is time travel. It's either all of it's a joke or none of it's a joke. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah.
I have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah. I did actually like Hulk in this movie. He was he was less like one dimensional. I think they did a really good job making him like a more like in-depth character. I didn't think it was possible to make Hulk
he was also more empathetic. Like,
absolutely. So they find Thor and in New Asgard, and I don't think I like how they handled Thor.
I absolutely love how they handled Thor.
Well, here's the
At first, it was a total meme. The rest of the movie was a total meme, but it made sense for the character, I thought.
I don't know. Here's my one issue with it. After thinking about it more, I mean, yes, I thought the shock value was funny, finding out that he was fat. It's like, oh, that's not a character you'd think would be fat. What I had an issue with is that they're and I get that they're two different characters and they handle their grief differently, but when Tony dealt with kind of like PTSD and failure and kind of like struggling with that, and he was having anxiety, they handled that in a more mature way. With Thor, they just made him fat and made fun of him.
I don't think that's what it was. I think he was dealing with depression, and he used alcohol to escape that. I think it was like a pretty simple concept, but I think they executed well. He just gave up because he felt like he failed humanity.
Right, exactly. But I just felt like it was inconsistent from how they had handled serious topics like that before, and then how they just kind of made it a joke.
Mm-hmm. I think they used it as a front for many jokes. I don't think it was a joke in general.
You don't think him being depressed was the joke? It's just more about how he let himself go.
I think that was no. I think like they used the fact that he looked so different from like the ideal male as a front for jokes. But I think the character development leading to him being fat the whole movie, which wasn't really the point. It was just like he's just an alcoholic now.
I just feel like it was just kind of a character rebalance where, because like we were saying at the end of Infinity War, he was, in my opinion, between him and Tony Stark, those were top two in Avengers at the moment. Like
they're both OP.
You had Nanomite, Iron Man, who could just be like, oh, I'll just think of whatever I want and it'll become something because I have Nanomite technology. And then you have Thor who's just like
lightning,
Stormbreaker. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Not only can he use his, lightning power, and he has a really overpowered axe hammer. I'm just like
King's weapon.
Yeah, I'm just like, those were top two, and I feel like both of those was a character rebalance. Iron Man was stuck in space and malnourished for a whole bunch of time, and has a family, and now he has to have a little more clout and weight, and he's older. And then you have Thor, who's now kind of fitting to what his comic book self was.
You look like melting ice cream. Rocket the Raccoon said, "Yeah." Oh, by the way, he's sitting in a hut with Korg and Meek.
Yep.
Korg and Meek, and they both survived
playing
Snapping.
Fortnite, of course.
I know.
The snapping.
I can't. That implies that Fortnite is around for 5 more years, and that's not a universe I want to live in.
I'm so glad I hope we don't have to live in that
But
universe.
there was in the time heist part of it that I was very confused by was, and someone can probably correct me on it, when Thor goes back in time to get the stone from...
he takes Mjolnir with him.
Yeah. Then wouldn't Mjolnir not exist for the future of that section of the movie?
Well, because what happens is, the Ancient One explains it to Bruce. When you take something out of a timeline, it just branches into a different reality.
Oh, I actually remember Captain America took it back.
He did.
At the end.
He did.
Oh,
Yeah, he
he
did take it
That's right,
back.
that's right.
That's true.
That's right.
That's true.
That's what I was going to be like.
Yeah,
But if he didn't, then which
so that's a good detail that they did that.
yeah, that would have been. But
I was like, oh, he's just taking it back to fight, but no, he's like putting it back.
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Which that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, we'll get to there.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. We'll get to that. Then because of the time heist. Oh yeah, they figure out that at one point 3 of the Infinity Stones are all in New York.
Yep.
Shut the front door, says Hulk. I love that. And so they go back to 2012.
Yep.
To the Battle of New York to get the time stone, the Mind Stone, and the Space Stone. They're all in New York at the same time.
Yep.
Rocket and Thor go back to get the Reality Stone to the movie that no one wants to talk about.
That short period that they spent in that movie's time period was better than the movie. So.
I know. Well, it's funny because Marvel is just because I remember my wife was thinking before when she was watching all the Marvel movies before Infinity War. She's like, "Which one should I watch?" I was like, "Well, watch these." And she's like, "What about Thor 2?" I was like, "No one watches Thor 2. You don't need to watch that." But Marvel's like, "No, you need to watch it.
Pay attention to Thor 2, please."
Yes, and then another pair of teams go back to Morag to get, or go back to 2014, where to Guardians of the Galaxy in the first movie to get the Power Stone and the Soul Stone.
And this led to some of my favorite fan service, but still serving the story moments where you had them like in their own movies, basically.
Yeah, basically.
And you
but
saw like some behind the scenes stuff that you hadn't seen in the other movies. And I heard they actually brought Joss Whedon back to direct some of the
good.
parts. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Right.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That makes sense because they
that's
felt
good.
like they belonged in the movies.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They were like, "We're at capacity. Take the stairs." And the Hulk is like, "So many stairs." He was so bad. But yeah, so Tony sends Ant-Man to put his past self in cardiac arrest so they can get the Space Stone. But Hulk smacks him with the door.
When he finally gets to the bottom of the stairs.
Yes.
And then we got Loki being Loki. And
Loki grabs
messing things
the Tesseract and dips.
Yep.
So he's gonna go off to be in his Disney Plus spinoff thing, and
we just have
that's
all,
just
like-
that's where he went.
We got
Probably.
like all the most of the attempts to get the gems messed up by something, whether it's like Thor's like not wanting to face his mother, or just like they all kind of hit stone walls.
Yep.
I don't see what I did there.
And then,
stone walls,
of course,
just-
you
I don't know.
had what I thought was kind of the biggest throw off because obviously you have to get the Soul Stone, and what happens,
like
You have to-
Hawkeye and Black Widow have an epic fight to like who's gonna kill themselves.
Yeah.
Like
I was for sure thinking it was gonna be Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
I honestly
I
thought it
did
was
too,
Hawkeye.
because
Which is weird because I don't know whether to call him Hawkeye or Ronan in this, but
They never
Just call him Clint
Ronan. I
Barton.
mean,
yeah, Clint.
Just call him Clint.
So, yeah. So
What,
Black
dude?
Widow and Clint go and they
Natasha and Clint.
yeah.
Nat and Clint.
And
I
I
know,
was
that was
I was
like-
kind of shook. I was for sure being like, they're gonna keep her around. They're gonna give her a Black Widow movie.
'Cause she
I'm
is
like,
gonna
that's
have a
what's
movie.
gonna happen.
No, that's
with
confirmed. But
But
that's
it's
actually that's
in
taking
the
place.
past.
That's
It's a
taking place in
prequel.
the 90s.
which
Yeah.
I think it needed to happen because it makes sense.
I need to know what happened in Budapest.
that. Right? They referenced it on the space ride there. It's like, okay.
This is a lot different than Budapest. What the f- happened in Budapest?
So that's what was like. That's what's interesting was
Yeah, and it was one of the most emotional
They-
moments of the film, but it was like almost undercut because you like at least
Yeah.
I kind of thought she was gonna come back,
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, she isn't. That's the thing.
No,
Like,
she's
she's
not.
dead. She's
So it
gonna
was
she's
like-
gonna have her backstory movie later,
But
but
she's
that's
dead.
but she's dead.
So
Black
it was
Widow
like-
dies.
It was like almost like when you go to the point with Iron Man later on, you know, the funeral and everything, and you see, and you kind of like realize that Black Widow's also gone. It like hits you like almost twice as hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they allude to that later, but
What?
when I was talking about my wife with this, saying like, oh, like, who do you think's gonna die? And I kind of was like, do you think they'll kill Black Widow? And she was like, nah, I don't think they will. And they did. And I looked at my wife and she was like, damn it. She's just like, damn it.
Which that's another confusing point and another question I had. When at the end of the movie,
When Cap goes to take the Soul Stone back,
where and how?
It's
Does
not-
he
it's-
not die then?
Well,
no.
you don't have to sacrifice someone to put it back.
no, you don't get a refund.
So you're just gonna be
You-
like, here you go,
you don't get a
Soul Stone.
Right.
you don't get a refund for the Soul Stone.
Right, 'cause
But that's
Gamora-
what's interesting
Gamora
though,
also
is
didn't come
because
back.
yeah,
Gamora
Not
didn't
the right
come
Gamora.
yeah. So that's what I thought was kind of strange and interesting too. Is like, okay, what are you just gonna go and like?
I mean, if you think about
Drop
it, like
it there.
going back and putting the stones back, it doesn't make any sense at all because time travel never makes sense. But
Yeah.
it served its purposes. I
Right.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
so they get all the stones. They come back. They put it in an Iron Man gauntlet, and the Hulk has a moment where he said they're giving off gamma radiation. That's literally going through my blood. I should be the one to do it. It's
Because
like
Thor has an emotional moment where he's like, I have to do it.
I have to do it because I messed up, and it's like Hulk is just like, no, it has to be me because like I'm the only one that can survive this.
yeah.
And he has this really good moment where he's like, okay, everyone comes home, and he puts on this gauntlet. It thrashes him.
Yeah.
It like hurts him bad.
Yeah.
And he's wailing in pain as he just snaps his fingers, and then he just collapses. His arm is all charred.
All the while, Nebula, who you then find out is Nebula from the past that came to the future because they got other Nebula from the future. You have 5 years forward Nebula and old Nebula.
Yes.
And they find out the whole
2014 Nebula.
plan. Yes, you have 14 Nebula and
19 Nebula.
19 Nebula.
Oh jeez.
You go forward. Okay, so I'm trying to get this as most clear as possible. Okay, anyway, yeah. So the future Nebula gets caught, and then past Nebula goes in future Nebula's place to go and bring Thanos into the future so he can get all the Infinity Stones and do all that way. All the while, she's doing that, brought Thanos there, has, the ship, I don't know what the ship's name is, but the big ship that he had all the,
Sanctuary.
yeah. Is it that name?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the name.
yeah, okay. Then
I didn't know that,
Sanctuary.
but I believe you.
Because even Thanos is just like, bring him to my ship. It doesn't even call it this anyway. But I guess
Well, no,
it's
he
his
doesn't
ship.
need-
He can call it whatever the fuck he wants to.
That's true.
So it's like a captain just like no captain's just gonna be like, oh, bring it to
Bertha.
Bertha. They're gonna be like, who? Like a goddamn ship. No.
Like obviously.
1,000 die.
So yeah, Hulk snaps. Everyone has a nice moment, and then Ant-Man's just like strolling out, and he's just like, "Look, I think it works." And then
missiles.
quick cut, quick
Missiles,
cut to
entire
Berard
base destroyed.
Yes.
entire Avengers base just literally like
It's rubble.
literally Lego.
It's a parking lot.
It's the big tote crate of mismatched Lego pieces that you never use. That's what the Avengers base was.
It's when your big brother comes in and kicks your Lego creation to pieces.
Indeed.
So there's this funny moment because before all this, Tony brings Captain America a new shield, and they have this cute moment where he's like, "If you drop this again, I'm taking it back." And so everyone
and they finally make up, which I thought they did a good job of.
Yeah.
they did, which they almost didn't in the beginning because Tony was really pissed because Captain America's like, you weren't there when we needed you, and so
It was
so
like
they-
almost more heated than in the past.
Yeah. So they were. Yeah. So they're okay. Yeah. So they're good now, and they find Thor standing in this like on the almost looks like on the mouth of this cave where all of the rubble is, and he's staring at Thanos, who's just sitting there waiting for the Avengers to roll up, basically.
Yeah.
And Captain America and Iron Man are like, "What's he doing?" He's like, "He's just been sitting there." and then Thor probably, and then this is one of the coolest exchange. Captain America, I think, okay, let's take care of him, and then Thor was just like, let's kill him proper this time.
Yeah.
And he summons both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, and his beard is braided. He has he looks more, but he's still fat.
He looks like a more like.
I told you he was rebalanced, because if you imagine if Thor was regular Thor from,
and he had
Infinity War,
Mjolnir and
He
Stormbreaker.
probably
He'd be really
easily
broken.
dispatched.
he'd be really broken.
Yeah,
he'd
so-
be very broken.
So now we get to this moment where the three of them are fighting Thanos, and it gets to this moment where Thor, he's calling back. He's getting the crap kicked out of him by Thanos. He's calling Stormbreaker back, and then Thanos just catches it and goes like, "No, this is mine now." And he's about to put it in his chest, where Thor put it in future Thanos's chest.
Yep.
So it's kind of weird coming full circle.
Juxtaposition,
Yeah. And then you kind of see Mjolnir being lifted, and I'm thinking, oh, Thor's gonna call it. That makes sense. And then he gets hit by it, comes back, boom, Captain America
As
catches Mjolnir.
as an open Captain America hater before they made up. I was fangirling so hard,
Dude,
Captain America with Mjolnir is just what is
and
this is just-
the sequence that takes place after this is he's hitting all of the Smash Bros combos.
Yes.
And
Which was upon watching it, because I wasn't a huge Cat fan, like you said, I was just like, cool, you can actually use it. And then as I'm watching him use it, I'm just like, he's using it better than Thor can use it. What the hell?
tandem with a shield.
Does he,
and lightning.
Yeah, you have Thor, who's a Smash Bros player who didn't buy the manual, and then you have Captain America's just
all technical.
oh, I can do that. There you go. And then we'll just call down some lightning. There we go. And
the sound of
and
it
it's
bouncing off the shield.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
good. And then when Cap caught it, Thor, it was just a callback to Age of Ultron, where he saw it shimmy a little bit.
Right.
Thor was like, "Oh," he was like, when he saw him
knew it.
caught it, he's like, "I knew it!" And then Thanos just kicks him. He's just like, "Shut up!"
Oh, and again, I know we talked about this when we talked about Infinity War, but the balance between humor and serious moments works really well.
Yep.
Yes.
In this one, I felt
not-
like it was
it's-
much heavier with but they still did a great job of blending in the humor without it being inappropriate. I thought.
Yes, absolutely. The humor did not feel forced at all. It felt really good. And what ends up happening is Thanos breaks Captain America's shield. It gets broken in half. And
You think Captain America's gonna die, honestly?
yeah, I honestly thought he was.
And it
but it's
also
funny.
has one of my favorite shots in cinema history with Captain America against the sky and rubble with Thanos. Beautiful.
Oh yeah, and you see his army developing, and you're just like, oh no. And if you actually watched, he actually got cut on his arm, from when the sword came down.
Yeah.
So when he tightens it, he's tightening it over the wound, and I'm just like, oh, that made me wince. I was
Yeah,
like,
I
that.
was too.
Oh gosh. Which again goes back to misdirection. In the trailers, of all the shots with his shield, it was all intact. But now in the movie, it's broken up. Then you get probably one of the, admittedly, one of the biggest fan service moments, but also one of the most triumphant moments. Sam Falcon comes over the comm and says "Hey, Cap, on your left," which is a callback to Winter Soldier when Steve Rogers kept lapping him, saying "on your left." I don't think he knew he was actually going to show up on his left, but he was saying it's hey, I'm here, kind of thing.
And at this moment, I had literally forgotten that Hulk had brought everyone back. I was like,
Really? You forgot?
I literally forgot. I was like, oh yeah, that had just happened. He actually snapped them back.
That happened, right? And when I saw the portal starting to open, that's when I just started going. I just started jumping up in my seat, and my wife was hitting me, trying to get me to stop. Yes, exactly. She was like, "Stop!" And everyone,
Starting with
Literally everyone.
Black Panther, Shuri, everyone, and he brought all of Wakanda.
Yeah.
And then you have the Guardians of the Galaxy return with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man got the biggest applause in my theater.
They paused for Spider-Man because it was just he showed up and he's just like,
I'm
1,
here now.
And then when he starts talking
3.
to Tony and is just all excited, and there's
That's
that
in the
hugging
middle of the
moment,
fight.
It's just
Okay, but what we have to talk about is that epic pan shot where you see all the
portals
fighters lining up for this big fight, and Steve Rogers, Captain America, for the first time, as he calls back Mjolnir, for the first time in cinematic history in all of these Marvel movies, it has never been said. He says, "Avengers, assemble."
Yep.
So satisfying.
I almost I'm glad they didn't do it up to this point, because with this 10-year, 11-year buildup, it was so satisfying. And this giant war, like Lord of the Rings status, breaks
almost
out.
like bigger. Like
It
you
felt-
don't realize
Well,
how many.
I was gonna
cast
say
members there are.
bigger because you see freaking Ant-Man, who's now Giant Man, running, and he punches one of those big centipede things
Like
out of
nothing.
the air. That was
Yep.
awesome. Okay,
But
we could
you
just
don't
say
realize how big the main cast is until you see all of them together. This is the fight I wanted in Infinity War. In this year.
But I'm glad it happened here.
Yeah.
There's a bigger payoff here. You see Pepper Potts in her rescue armor for the first time. You see her,
Which
in
is
her
funny
armor.
because earlier Tony was like, she never wears anything. I'd buy her.
But yeah, exactly. So now going back,
We could pan onto that fight for an hour in itself.
yeah,
but
Tony and Peter have a nice reunion moment where he's just rambling, and Tony's just happy that he's back and just hugs him, and then Peter has him and he's like, "Oh, this is nice."
There's a very nice scene where they're trying to get the remade gauntlet away from Thanos to the time machine van, and it trades hands many times. Pretty much, you get a basic like lineup of everybody who's been in the cinematic universe.
you get Black Panther that takes it from Clint. Is like, "Give it to me."
Yeah.
Like, I will take it.
He's got some cool moments with his like powers and everything.
Yeah.
And then at one
Spider-Man
point,
takes it. And he's like, "Hey, Friday, activate instant kill mode."
Yeah.
And then it has the spider arms that are going choo 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 choo.
and it trades hands a lot, and and then eventually Carol Danvers shows up, literally just like phases through the ship. that's floating and
Deus
just goes-
Ex Machina just comes through.
She comes like,
comes
nice
up-
ship.
comes off the bench and just like
Does a
exactly.
figure eight in
okay,
it.
she's gonna destroy everything. Okay.
Yep.
And she faces off Thanos.
Yep.
and Thanos headbutts Captain Marvel.
And she's just like, that's cute. And then,
and is unfazed. But then Thanos at this point Thanos has gotten the Infinity Gauntlet.
She's stopping him from snapping.
Yeah, and she's stopping him from snapping. And so she's holding his hand open essentially, so he can't snap. So then instead he just takes the Power Stone off,
No problem.
Yeah.
No
and
big
then
deal.
just punches her. He just bitch slaps her off screen,
again
and she is
reminds us-
never seen again
Right.
for the rest of the movie.
It reminds us how smart, not
was.
just strong, but smart Thanos.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He is a skilled fighter.
Yeah.
And then Tony looks at Doctor Strange.
who's holding back the ocean at this point.
Yeah,
because there's
holding
a
back
scene
the
like
lake
that.
because there's this big breach.
Yeah.
And he looks at Tony and gives him. He puts up one finger and just like one. Like
Right.
you-
And
there's-
earlier he didn't want to tell him.
Yeah, he's like, I can't tell you what the one victory is because then it won't happen. And Tony, I don't know how he knew at that moment, but he knew what he
Yeah.
had to do. So he rushes Thanos, and Thanos is like punching him
Yeah.
with his other. He's like, "Get off!" And he's just trying to grab the gauntlet, but to no avail, and he gets smashed away.
Yep.
And Thanos thinks
I won.
he's like,
And he's
"I
like-
am inevitable." And then nothing happens, and he looks
For
at the
like
gauntlet.
a quarter of a second, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But then you just saw how ineffective it like sounded.
It was like, tink,
Tink.
and then it was like tink tink.
No, he didn't do it again.
Oh,
he,
he didn't.
he just went tink, and then he was just like, "What?" And he
Turned
like
the gauntlet.
looked, and the gauntlet was empty.
And then it pans to Iron Man.
And he has his hand up.
The
and all
nanomites are all putting it right into place. And
and
probably my favorite line.
Even though it's so simple, it was so just.
yeah, and it was a response to Thanos saying, "I am inevitable," and he's like, "And I am Iron Man."
And snaps.
And Tony's body cannot take the sheer power of the stones.
After
and
not making Thanos and his army not feel so good.
oh gosh, yeah,
He
they
turned them to dust.
yeah, dusted them all, and Tony is mortally wounded. Like how the right side is his face,
Bad.
and there's a very tender, sad moment where Peter. Well, first,
It's kind of
first
like-
Rhodey comes
Yeah.
up to him, and he's just kind of like, I'm like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
Then Peter comes up and he's telling him, we won, Mr. Stark. We won. And it's a weird like flip from like the end of Infinity War where like, I don't feel so good. I don't want to go. And
Right.
now
You
it's
got
weird.
Peter letting go this time.
Yeah, Peter
And
has to
that
let
broke
him
me.
go. Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's like, and Tom Holland is a great actor. He's a really great actor. So he really drove that performance
Like
home.
that innocence.
Oh gosh, the innocence. And the, like, it's like, I just got back, and now you're gone. And and
then he like
Pepper.
he's like Mr. Stark, but he's like calls him Tony.
Yeah.
And that's just like
Yeah. First he calls him Mr. Stark, and then he starts calling him Tony. He's like, Tony,
which he hadn't done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
of course Pepper shows up, and then
she's like, we're okay. You can rest now. And then,
she's totally supportive, and then he like passes. You're crying. You're crying.
Yeah. She's that. I think that moment made me cry. I think the most. I didn't really cry when Black Widow died. I felt really emotional, but I didn't cry.
Yeah.
But that moment, that really broke me. I couldn't stand watching that because that was just so hard to watch. But
there was just like so many things. It wasn't just him dying. It was like the support he got.
yeah, for the support he got
everything.
for that decision, and then there's a funeral where there's the kid from Iron Man 3. That's that mystery kid.
That's who that was.
Yeah,
I did not know who that was.
That's who that's supposed to be. That's the same actor, but 6 years older.
Okay. That is attention to detail.
Yeah, it is. It really was. I had no idea who that was. I was sitting there going like, who the hell's that
I
kid?
was like, did they like do something to Tom Holland? He looks so different. And I was like, no.
But
We
no,
already
he
saw Tom Holland.
Yeah, Tom Holland was there with Marissa Tomei.
So it was like, okay. And
Happy Hogan has a moment with Morgan where she says she wants a cheeseburger.
And she's like, oh.
And
well,
I'll
your
get
dad
you-
loves
Breaking
cheeseburgers,
moment.
I'm
I'll
fine.
get you all the cheeseburgers you want. And that's what he said to Tony in the first Iron Man movie when he came back.
Yep.
Yeah, another full circle moment.
Yeah,
It's just-
then
she
then-
is like Tony's daughter.
Yeah, pretty much. And then now Captain America goes back in time, put all the stones back, which that's the one kind of thing I was a little like weird about because it's just like the Tesseract was in the Space Stone was in the Tesseract and the Mind Stone was in the Scepter. How is he gonna put all that back? But
Yeah,
whatever.
They kind of didn't explain it. But
Eh,
they didn't
eh.
really have time, I guess.
Yeah.
I at this
semantics.
point was like, they could do whatever they want, and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And then-
They could just spit on the stones and have them all go back in time, and I'd be like, all right, sure.
Yeah. Which is weird because why couldn't you literally just snap them back in time? Why wouldn't you just be able to be like, oh, put them back?
Well, then someone else would die, probably, because that's a lot of power.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of power.
Yeah, that's
I was gonna say, I don't think you want to ask the Hulk to do that with his other arm.
if like
It'll be
Thanos
like-
himself like was
Yeah.
basically almost dead from doing that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then when he goes back, he doesn't come back right away.
After like 5 seconds, like he's supposed to.
Yeah, and they see an old man sitting on a bench, and it's a retired Captain America who then passes on the shield to Sam Wilson, not Bucky Barnes. That was the surprise. I thought it was gonna be Bucky, but I'm okay with it being Sam.
Because it was like Bucky was like, even Bucky like knew it was supposed to be Sam.
Yeah.
In this film.
So
Yeah.
And
Not to say Bucky won't become Captain America
Right.
at some point, but to start, it will be Sam Wilson will be taking up the garb as Captain America or the new Captain America.
Yep. And here is where the confusing part comes in. So he goes back in time, right? Now at this point, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he marries somebody else. And then the very ending scene when he's
It shows
dancing with
him-
her, I'm like, okay, now here's the doesn't make sense. It's because in 2014, right?
With Civil War?
With the original, with the Battle of New York.
That's
with
2012.
Or 2012, I'm sorry. Well, way back anyway. Well, and even then, in the Captain America one, where he finds her in the hospital and all that, I'm like, why would she then be like, I've waited so long if then he spent his whole life with her and he's still alive?
Branching timelines.
But that doesn't have to happen.
Well, yeah, I think.
I mean,
That's what I'm like-
I mean, they kind of explained it away with Hulk saying like your future self going into the past can't change the past and can't change the
Right.
future. So I think him going back in time and being with her, I think it's just like an alternate time or like an alternate version of him.
But
I don't know.
That, like Captain America got his happy moment, and it was
Yeah.
He got his happy ending basically.
it was
yeah.
a beautiful
Yeah.
way to end.
So now, to recap, Black Widow's dead.
Iron Man's
Hulk's
dead.
kind of. I don't know if Hulk can't use both of his arms or not, or if
But
he's
he's pretty messed up.
mortally
I
messed
think
up.
he's recovering.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea.
Thor is now touring the universe with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which, in my opinion, the Guardians had the least amount of attention in this entire movie.
Rocket got a lot of attention though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
And-
Him and Nebula.
Nebula. I
And
liked
then-
a lot of the development for Nebula.
So
But
Thor
when they
is now
when they
not
first
there
see each
anymore.
other after everything and they hold hands.
Oh, and then obviously Iron Man's gone, and
Obviously.
Captain America is old now.
Yeah, so,
So
he's
you
basically
have-
gonna die.
you
and,
have-
and then Hawkeye, like, he obviously is never coming back to anything.
Yeah, he's
just gonna
probably
be with
just
his
gonna
family.
step away. So you have literally maybe 2 Avengers left. You have maybe injured Hulk, and you have Hawkeye, who might be like, hey,
Well,
I'll
Thor
make an
Thor
appearance.
is
And
Chris
Thor.
Hemsworth is confirmed to come on for another Thor movie.
Oh, he is.
Yes, he is.
I didn't know.
But I don't know if he is going to be in another ensemble film like with the Guardians or with
I mean,
or another Avengers. I don't know if that's going to be a thing.
They could very easily.
I don't know if he's
transition
gonna.
him.
I don't know if he's gonna come back as like old Thor at some
They
point.
could very easily transition him from not being with the Guardians. Like,
Oh no, they easily
Yeah.
could. Absolutely, but
So
I mean, we kind of talked about it before. We can't really give a grade to this movie because it's so different from most movies, and it does what it does really really well.
because it
And-
wouldn't have the impact that it had if it was just Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
because you don't have all those 20 films before them, and that like is what makes this film what it is.
yeah, absolutely.
And again, like nothing has been done like this before.
Yeah. And yeah, I think going forward, trying to decide or trying to think who's going to be part of the next Avengers team is not. I don't think that's the right thing to do because I mean
Yeah.
they're going to put whoever they're going to put, and it's probably going to work because even the side characters have gotten pretty decent development. So
Yeah.
I think, and then with all of the standalone movies that are going to come out, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be another 10 years of them building these like smaller characters, and then there's going to be some other thing like maybe Galactus will show up at some point, or or now
Because I know they- I
now
think they're doing a Silver Surfer movie, right?
I don't know. But now they have 20th Century Fox. Doctor Doom is an available character, so maybe he can be something similar to what Thanos was, and maybe he can bring some apocalyptic thing.
yeah,
Who knows?
They got a lot of options, and I think they'll do a great job because
Yeah.
they have.
but overall,
And maybe Marvel can
Yeah.
do something with the Fantastic Four
no,
That's not garbage.
that's
No.
not hot garbage.
no, I'm done. I'm done with the
Well, if
Fantastic
Marvel, if Disney Marvel does it,
I
do you
don't-
think it'll
no.
be okay?
Four. No, I don't.
See,
care
I
about
don't want them, but I think they'll do a good job. Just it's their
Yeah.
property, so
It's kind of like it was kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy. No one knew kind of who they were, but like when you got it, it was like, oh, I actually.
The
like
difference
that.
is like
They had no
Fantastic
movie.
Four has been done twice already, and
Yeah, it's yeah.
Well, technically 3 times. There's been 3 movies.
right, but it's been like done 2 separate universes.
Anyhow.
So, yeah. Anyway, like
There's no reason you can't go and see this movie more than once, and I probably will attempt to. And it is a
Yeah.
great.
I kind of want to
said,
at some point too.
This is a good end of the era of older Marvel, and I feel like we're gonna step into a very different feeling.
It's going to look
Marvel from
very
now on.
different
Yeah.
going forward, and I'm okay with that.
I'm really
So-
interested to see the new Avengers like Black Panther like kind of take on these like more primary roles and see what other heroes kind of pop
Yeah.
up.
So, with that being said, we are still on Twitter. We're still on Facebook,
Yep.
YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean,
Yep.
where we originated.
Yep.
And you can follow us there. Email us at nerdingoutpodcast@gmail.com. Send us ideas. Send us your feedback. If you send us an idea, put in the subject line "flavor blasted," and we will actually
Do it.
do it. We
Yeah.
will. I promise.
Yep.
It's a pinky promise. I can't pinky promise over your headphones, but
Just
if
don't tell us to, like, rate.
here's my pinky.
Just don't tell us to like rate celebrity vomit incidents or something because that's like way
Yeah,
over
we
my
don't
head.
do that.
Yeah,
We
we're
don't
not
do
going to talk about the Kardashians, but anyway.
Well,
But thank you again so much for listening. Here's to another great half of a year.
Yeah. Good to be back.
Yes, very good to be back.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you.
do this.
Thank you so much for David for coming back.
Of course.
Thank you, Nathaniel, for being here.
Thank you, Evan, for being here.
And yes, that is my name. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.